Well, good morning, gentlemen, or maybe afternoon, depending on where you're at, of course. All right, welcome to another Bloodhound workshop. Let me see. Let me actually finish taking a look to see who's in the room. Yeah, there is at least one name, maybe two names here. I'm not quite sure about. So, before I get started, let me just ask if there's anybody who's fairly new or is new in these workshops here today. And if so, the question is, would you like to hear the workshop introduction? All right, so the workshop introduction is, I'll explain what we do in these workshops, what we do not do. I'll explain how the recordings work, so if you do ask a question, you'll know how soon and where you can get the recordings. And then lastly, I'll explain the indicators that I can install into my NinjaTrader here. So, all right. So if anybody would like to hear the workshop introduction, let me know. I'll get that out of the way first. So let's see here. So while I'm waiting on that, I do have a question here that wasn't emailed in specifically for the workshops, but it was emailed in, and it is a new question here. So actually, I have just I have the question here in Notepad. Basically, it was a question about how do you use the correlation indicator and identify if you have three instruments, at least three instruments, in correlation. How do you then identify that on the chart there? All right, so that'll be like my backup topic here, or question to get the workshop started. But if you guys have questions that you want to ask, I'll let those take priority first, and I'll just kind of use this as fill in here. All right, so let me go to the Q&A window here, and Tony is back. Yeah, Tony, I haven't seen you in a while. All right, well, hopefully you brought some questions with you, or maybe you're just bored and want to hang out. So let's see here. Any changes in the last 3 years? Yes, absolutely. So if you guys want to know, what changes have taken place here, then what you can do, right, go to our website here and go to support. And I would say there's a couple of ways to get there, but I think the easiest way is to go to the download installer page here. Right, so let me open that up in another tab. There we go. So on the download and installer page here, scroll down, right? So step 2, and you can see right there's the big button to download the current version. But where you want to go here is the changelog and older versions page here. So let's click on that page. And so on the changelog page here, we note all the changes, just like NinjaTrader does, right? So yeah, we try to mimic or use NinjaTraders as a good template, for doing stuff there. So yeah, so here's basically a list of everything that's been done with all the different updates there. So Tony, you can just go through. I guess you said 3 years ago. So well, actually, yeah, wow, it's amazing. It certainly feels longer, but yeah, Bloodhound version 2 has just been out for 3 years. So there's been a lot that's happened since Bloodhound version 2 first launched there. So you can just kind of go through each of those there and see what's been updated there. So let's see here. Let me take a look at the latest update here. Yeah. So probably keywords you want to look for is added and improvement. Things, yeah. So words like corrected, fixed, obviously those are bug fixes or, issues fixed. So yeah, so there's another added, an improvement. So yeah. All right, so there you go, Tony. Just cruise on over to the changelog page and you can see exactly what has been updated there. Going back is all the way all the way to NinjaTrader 8. Actually, yeah, we have everything listed here. Going all the way back to, no, not everything. All right, we're only going back to 2015. So, but, yeah. Okay, so there's Tony's kind of, yeah, what kind of non-bloodhound related question, but definitely a lot of people are always curious. Let's see here. All right, let's see what's up here. All right, Gerald says he's new here, first timer, and let's see, I didn't see your name earlier. All right, oh, I see. All right, so we have a few more people in the room here. All right, so yeah, let me ask the question here again, which is, if you're new or fairly new to these workshops, would you like to hear the workshop introduction? All right, so it takes about 12 minutes to get through the workshop introduction there. But what I'll explain is what we do in these workshops, what we do not do. I'll explain how the recordings work. So if you ask a question, you'll know how soon and where you can get a recording of your question there. And then lastly, the third topic is I'll explain the indicators that I can install into this machine here. So, all right. So if anybody would like to hear the workshop introduction, just let me know. Like I said, it's about 12 minutes, so I don't do it unless somebody actually wants me to. So, all right. Anyways, so Gerald, welcome. And so as you found out, we're using the Q&A window here. So if you have questions about how to do something in Bloodhound, just ask in the Q&A window there and I'll get it answered for you. All right, let's see here. Tony's up again. Yeah, so Tony's wanting to know, can you get signals from another chart? Yes. Yes, you can. So, I mean, that's the whole point of adding here. And actually, yeah, you can see I have a bunch of indicators here for that question that I have queued up. So let me kind of minimize all this. Yeah, so opening up Bloodhound here. And I guess before I get started, let's put in today's file name here, right? So the first thing you want to do is create a file name here. So all your work gets saved to that file. And so let's put in the October date here. And all right, is that right? No, I got an extra 0 in there. I was trying to get that extra 0 out. There we go. All right. So yeah, so if you want to work, or if you want to get information from other charts, right, one of these icons is add chart. Okay. So, we called it add chart because it's not just adding time frames. You can literally specify a different instrument, right? So you can see that with this time frame, aka chart, right, you can actually specify a different instrument, so that makes it a different chart. But if you just want a different time frame, right, just leave that empty, and then you can go in here and select whatever kind of bar type you want for that time frame there, right, and set it all up. Yeah. So once you have another chart, so let's see, I'm on the ES. So let's say you actually want to work from the NQ. Let's put the NQ in there. And let's see, this is a 15-second chart. All right. So I'll just leave it on a 1 minute NQ. And there you go. And so from here, when you add new solvers, you can see now you have two charts, right? So you have the default chart or default time frame, right? Which will be the ES 15-second, because that's what Bloodhound, whatever chart Bloodhound is running on, that's always the default time frame there. And then there's our secondary chart there, right? So if you want to do some kind of comparison, right, you'll add a comparison, onto that other chart there. And therefore, so whatever indicators, so right now, right, all these SMAs are running on this NQ 1 minute chart there. All right. So just one technical note to be aware of, which is Bloodhound is not running on this 1 minute chart. Bloodhound is running on this 15-second chart. So that means that, let's close this out. We're going to take a step back here. So what that means is Bloodhound, right? If we go to all the properties here, and we just kind of close everything up. There we go. All right. So Bloodhound is running on this ES 15-second, and the calculate is set to on bar close. So Bloodhound is going to calculate when the ES 15-second bar closes, right? So it's not going to calculate when that NQ 1 minute chart closes. It's calculating, right? This NinjaTrader calculate setting means that you calculate when the default time frame bar closes, all right? So quite often people think that they can just willy-nilly mix and match whatever calculate they want. No, that's not how NinjaTrader operates. So, all right. So if you want to understand a little more in depth as to how this calculate operates, there, you go to NinjaTrader. All right. So Bloodhound it may be a fancy looking indicator, but it's still just an indicator, and it's required to calculate the same way all indicators are calculating. So Bloodhound can't violate the rules that NinjaTrader has set up for how indicators calculate and things of that nature. So, all right. Yeah. All right. So, yeah. So there you go, Tony. You can just add that secondary chart and just make sure you put all your new solvers that you want calculating on that chart underneath that time frame there. And if you make a mistake, remember you have the arrows here, so you can use the arrows. Let me click on that, use the arrows, and oh, that's right, the arrows for some reason are not working. So you can drag it up. We'll have to drag it for now. There you go. So you can just drag it up and drag it down. Like so, right? And then also when you zoom in here, you can see that this solver is labeled with the secondary time frame that it is running on. So if I put this back on the default time frame here, you can see, right, that label goes away, so we know that this solver is running on the default chart or the default time frame there. Okay. All right. Yeah. So there you go, Tony. You put that down there. Oh. Like so. Let's just, I'll just add another one here just to make something up. It's not going to do anything, but all right. So just to kind of mimic, right, what a system might look like. there you go. So you got two solvers running on the NQ chart, right? And of course you just connect them all together with your AND nodes and your OR nodes, and there you go. Get a result here. And actually, you know what? No, it's not true. Yeah, never mind. There, I'm just gonna undo everything. There we go. Yeah. So what I was gonna say is this kind of backup question that I have here is actually kind of running on multiple charts, but actually that's not true. Actually, the indicator, the correlation indicator itself actually has pulls in the secondary instrument and does its calculations internally. So actually Bloodhound is not, so for this question, Bloodhound is not itself pulling in secondary timeframes. The indicator itself is doing that. So, yeah. All right, so there's another question taken care of there for Tony. And all right, well, so I don't see any other questions here. So yeah, let me answer this question here. So give me a moment here to kind of set up. All right, so let's start from the beginning here. So for this next question here, right, we had this emailed in where, a trader wanted to use the correlation indicator and identify, right, when three different sources, and of course with this indicator, sources would be instruments, when three different instruments, right, and you can see he's running on a pretty fast chart here. I just use a 15-second there. And so he wants to know when three of these correlation indicators are above 0.95, right? Or 95% in correlation there. And then buy. So I'm going to modify this because correlation doesn't mean the market's going long, and it doesn't mean the market's going short. It's just correlation. Correlation is non-directional. So you'll need some other means to identify whether the market is correlating long or whether the market's correlating short there, right? So, all right. But yeah, we'll just focus on the main part here, which is identifying when at least we have three instruments in correlation greater than 95 there, right? So so the instruments I have on the chart there, right? So I have our first correlation indicator. It's looking at the NQ. The next one is looking at the YM. Next one's looking at the Russell. And then lastly, the oil right there, right? And I guess, yeah, I'll open up Ninja's indicator window here. Yeah, so there you go. So there you can see the four different correlation indicators that I have running on here. All right, so, and, since nothing was specified in the question, I'm just using the default count of 10 there, all right? So, okay, so there's the correlation indicator set up and the chart set up. So now let's get Bloodhound open, and we'll start building the solvers, right, that are reading these indicators here. Now, as we can see, this indicator, if we kind of shrink it down here, right, it ranges from -1 to +1, And so we have this level here, or threshold level of 0.95, right? So since we're looking for this, excuse me, let me take a drink here. My throat is still kind of clearing up from the cold I had last week. So yeah, I've still got some lingering remnants of the cold I had last 2 weeks. So I might have to pause it every once in a while. All right, so back to this oscillating indicator, right? That oscillates between +1 down to -1. And we want to know when that indicator is above this 0.95 threshold level. So to do that, we're going to use the threshold solver for all of these different correlation indicators here. All right, so let's see here. All right, I'm just going to abbreviate it core, and we want to know if it's greater than, and I'm going to say equals 0.95, right? And this one, we'll do the NQ first, okay? So I'll start from the top here and work my way down. So NQ, YM, RTY, CL, all right? Okay, so there we go. So we have a name for this solver here. Let's connect it in. And now the indicator. So let's plug in that correlation indicator. And all right, so use a little search tool here. And there we go, correlation. All right, so obviously, you know, if you want to use a different count, adjust that. And then in the instrument, hopefully, oh, that's right. It automatically uppercases the instrument. That's cool. And here's the next thing is you'll have to contact NinjaTrader, but I think you're going to have to type in so if you're doing a futures contract, right, you'll have to type in the expiration in accordance with whatever NinjaTrader settings you're using to specify that. All right, so I've left mine on the number system here. I find that's just a lot easier to deal with. So, all right, so there you go. So make sure you type in the expiration format correctly there according to your NinjaTrader settings. Otherwise, I'm sure this indicator will spit out an error if you type that in incorrectly. So, okay, and that was it, right? Just put in your instrument. And next, we're going to go into the threshold rules here, right? And we're looking for a value that's greater than or equal to 0.95. So we're going to put in 0.95, right? So we're going to do this for both long and short because, again, to reiterate, correlation is non-directional. It just means the markets are correlated, right? It doesn't tell you if it's correlated to the downside or correlated to the upside. It's just correlated. So, and all right, let's click OK. And next, let's close this up. Looky here. New multi-time frame indicator added. So yeah, the correlation indicator is a multi-time frame or a multi-instrument actually indicator. So NinjaTrader says we have to reload the chart. So I already reload the chart for the indicators on the chart, but the indicators inside a Bloodhound need a reload. So let's get that done. And there we go. So looking at this, there we have it. We can see, right, we get a long and a short output whenever the correlation is above 95. And yeah, if you look on the side here, actually, yeah, there we go. Look, it's at 0.954 right there. So as soon as this bar closes, and here. Well, let's see. I thought we were going to get an update there. Maybe not. Well, anyways, let's continue moving forward here. So, so there's one, right? So there's the NQ. So now we just got to rinse and repeat this for the other correlation indicators here. All right, so I'm going to take this, copy it, and paste it 4 times here, or three more times, sorry. There. All right, let's do the next instrument, which is the YM. So I just adjusted the name. So now we need to go into the indicator, right, and adjust the indicator. So there we go. Let's put the YM in there, and we're good to go. And again, right, Bloodhound's saying, okay, you know what? Yeah, we just added the YM, so now NinjaTrader needs a reload, so we can get that going. But before, let's just get all these done here, so we can do them all at the same time, right? So let's put in the RTY there, and open up the correlation indicator and put in the RTY, whoops, TY, there we go, and call that one good. And our last one here, oil, so CL, put this one, open up the correlation indicator again, and CL, and actually this time it's November contract. All right, and let me clean up the name here. There we go. And lastly, right, we want to know when we have at least 3 instruments here, right? So we need 3 out of 4 in this example here. Let's connect that up, right? So we're using the additive node here to make sure that we have 3 out of 4, right? Now, the next thing we have to do is go into each of these solvers here, and we're going to go to the options tab, and we need to reduce the output by 0.33, right? Like so. And so why are we reducing it to 0.33? Well, that's because this is an additive node. So to get 3 out of 4, when 3 of these solvers, you know, outputs a value of 0.33, let me just continue setting this up, 0.33. Right, 0.33. All right, so 3 of these solvers, right, where the output's 0.33, add those together and you get 0.99, right? So that's basically almost 1, right? So the other one can be 0, or the other one can be whatever, you know. So, and let's see here. So, yeah, that's basically it, right? So now let's close up Bloodhound, and we need to do that reload so we can get those other instruments loaded in to the indicator. And you'll notice here, right, on the Bloodhound panel, right, it's telling you all the instruments and time frames that it is loading in, right? So for example, we can see here, right, OBC stands for on bar close. So the calculates on bar close. The look back is infinite, and now we get to the time frames. So the first one is the ES, right? December 15-second, right? So that the first one's always going to be, whatever the chart is. And then we have NQ, right? December, and then YM December, and then RTY, and then the CL November, right? So these other instruments and timeframes, right, are coming from the correlation indicator that's running inside of Bloodhound, right? So each of these solvers, right, each of these solvers have the correlation indicator loaded in, and the correlation indicator for each of these solvers is loading in that secondary instrument, right? So that's why Bloodhound. So this is a requirement of NinjaTrader, where the hosting, or some might call the parent indicator. So Bloodhound is the parent or the hosting indicator of all of these different correlation indicators here, right? So the hosting indicator has to first load in the other instruments and timeframes that all the correlation indicators want to use. So, yeah. So there we go. There we have it. And let's see if we actually get any results. All right, there we go. So we do actually have one bar there of correlation. So let's see. I guess. No. Let's pull up the data box. There we go. So let's see, what do we have? There we go. Put my cursor on the right bar. Yeah, so we have 0.98, 0.98, 0.97, and 0.62. So all right, so yeah, that's it. So that question was pretty darn simple. And let's see here. See if we have any others. Yeah. Oh, there we go. We have a few back here, way back here. Let's see. Oh, I guess, okay, yeah, actually, there's one last thing, right? So we can see the market is in a downtrend. So as mentioned here, or at least the ES is in a downtrend, right? So with this correlation, you'd be assuming that the YM and the Russell are also in a bit of a downtrend, right? And again, what we're getting is a long and a short output, right? So you need some other mechanism or some other method to identify the trend, right? And so the easiest thing, I think most traders would jump to is a moving average, right? So let's go, and I'll just add the SMA here. SMA, yeah, I'll go with the 30 period like so. There we go. So to actually get a buy or a sell signal, right, the last thing to do is we need a slope solver, right? Or again, however which way, you want to determine the market, market's direction or trend. So I'm just going to use the slope of the moving average here, just, for a simple example. There we go. Give that a name. So let's open up the SMA and just adjust the period to 30, like so. And then next, we're going to add a AND node. All right, so we have correlation and then some mechanism to identify the trend direction. And there we go. So now we actually have along. Huh, funny. Why is that? Oh, yeah, look at that. At the last minute, the SMA turned up there. So, yeah, there we go. So I guess, the SMA might be a bad, or maybe the 30 period isn't long enough. I don't know. So, right, so substitute whatever indicator, and or mechanism you're using to identify the market trend there. And yeah, just connect it in with an AND node there. So, and let's give this a name here. So there. All right, there we go. Now we have a full, complete picture here of this question. All right, let me see if there's any follow-ups on this. All right, no, it doesn't look like there's any follow-ups on this question here. So let's put this away. And good, Tony's got some more questions here to keep the workshop going. Let's see here. Yeah, Tony's just noting, yep, right, yep, I do remember you used to ask a lot of questions, which is very typical of new users. Yeah, I can tell you were getting yourself up to speed as quickly as you could with Bloodhound and Blackbird. So yeah, so so usually when that happens, what I find is, when new users utilize this workshop and ask 100 questions, eventually after some period of time, they no longer need to come to these workshops. And so, yeah, they just kind of drop off. So that's what I have noticed, over the last 13 plus years that we've been in business. Yeah, people come and go. And then every once in a while, I guess they like to just jump back in here and see what's going on. So, yeah, totally understandable there, Tony. And let's see here. All right, so Tony actually has a question for me. And actually, Vito's one of those people as well. Yeah, Vito was one that had 100 questions a couple years ago, but now he knows it all. And I guess he just comes in here to help put himself to sleep. Right, just watch some boring workshop questions, and yeah, that ought to help you fall asleep at night. All right, anyways, let's get back to business here. So Tony's question. All right, yeah, so this is kind of a broader question here from Tony. Tony's asking, yeah, can Bloodhound read all the data that's displayed in the data box here? So Bloodhound, well, no indicator can read the data box, so specifically this data box here can't be read by other indicators here. But that's not really Tony's question. Tony's question is, when an indicator spits out, information that, values, right? Basically numeric values. Can Bloodhound read all that? Nothing has changed with NinjaTrader. So if there's still indicators out there that Bloodhound can't read, that's, there's nothing magical has changed with NinjaTrader. So NinjaTrader still requires that all indicators output their data either as a plot or as what's now called more generically a series, a data series, which the simplest way to put it, a data series is like a plot, but it's invisible. So you can't actually see a data series on the chart. So the answer to that question is no, Tony. NinjaTrader has not created some workaround to be able to read indicators that don't output their data according to how NinjaTrader requires. All right. Let's see here. All right, so there's that question out of the way. All right, we got a bunch of laughs in the room. Yeah. All right, so Tim. Yeah, so Tim, your name I didn't recognize. This is off the top of my head here. So I kind of assume that you might be newish. So the best way to kind of start learning is, well, first of all, if you have detailed questions, kind of like that correlation question here, something like this, you can always email your questions in to the workshop here. For the workshop, you can always email questions in for the workshop. Just send them into support, right? And in one thing I ask is that for the subject line of your question, please put like Bloodhound workshop question. So that helps me find those emails faster there. Just saves all of us there that monitor the email. This helps us know what your intention is. If you say, this is a workshop question in the subject line there, right? And then just spell it out. What is your question? What are you wanting to do here, right? I literally almost copied and pasted this verbatim out of the email there. So that's one thing you can do. Let's see here. Let's pull up a couple of other resources as well. Let's see here. All right, so I am on the training workshops page, right? So this page here is specifically, to help customers sign up for these workshops here, right? So you can see here's today's workshop, and right there's the registration link. Seems like that registration link should be a little bigger, but anyways. And tomorrow, right, we can see on Fridays is Blackbird, and there's the registration link for the Friday workshop there. But what I really wanted to point you to is if you scroll down to the recordings here, you can see there's a list here. So you can open up that, expands open, and here is a big master list that goes back to 2015, I believe. Right, and it's kind of all the questions asked that are substantive, right? Basically questions that were asked about how do you build this in Bloodhound, right? Miscellaneous kind of questions like Tony's questions about, can now Bloodhound read, all kinds of other indicators, those kind of questions get cut. Those don't make it here. All these topics here are about building something, building a system, or building, whatever it is you're trying to get out of Bloodhound. Building it. So there's lots of things there. So maybe something, piques your interest, for a trading idea or a market trend determination idea there. So you can kind of scan through all those. Or if you know something, if you have something specific in mind, you can use the little search box. And let's say maybe you're interested in an opening range question. All right, type in opening range, hit search. And all that does is it just opens up YouTube here, right? Takes you to our channel. And then you can see right there's the search term there in the search box there. And there's a bunch of topics there that YouTube will find for you, that mention opening range, right? Or actually, we had a bunch of pullback questions recently. Actually, I don't think they're edited here, but let's just see what pullback. Yeah, that one's 4 years ago. Let's see. Yeah, these were just literally asked like a couple of weeks ago. So the pullback questions haven't been edited out yet. So they haven't made it onto YouTube here. So, but anyways, all right. So there's another way. There is, again, on the training workshops page here. If you go down to the bottom, down the recordings there, look through the list. You can use the search box. And then lastly, this is what I would recommend you probably do first. All right, so this should be the first thing here. So I'm mentioning this last so you don't forget it, because this is probably the most important here. Let's go to support, and I'm going to pull up the documentation menu here. Let's see, where is it? Right there. All right, and you can see here. So getting started videos. So let's click on that, and there you go. There's a bunch of quick start videos there. Let's see here. So yeah, adding Bloodhound to a chart, creating a basic system, right? So if we scroll down, there you go. Obviously basics. So there you go. Just an introduction to building a system there. Multiple time frames. So right, we kind of mentioned that at the beginning there with one of Tony's questions there. And then it jumps into Blackbird. So and let's see here, exit signals. I'm not sure, but this might also include Bloodhound. Let's see here. Yeah, time block indicator. All right. Yeah, so my guess is this video also has the first part is probably Bloodhound, built using the time block indicator to build an exit signal, and then plugging that into Blackbird. So, all right, yeah. So there you go. So the getting started guide there, and I believe on the side menu, yeah, there you go. First one on the list there. So under the Bloodhound side menu, getting started, so you can just kind of go straight there, or again, support, documentation, right? And so on this page, well, either you can go to the side or you can just click right there. So, yeah. Okay, so yeah, and again, Tim, don't forget, if you have more complex questions, you can always email those in, and you don't actually have to be here watching to have a question answered here in these workshops. Again, let me go back to this correlation, right? I don't remember who emailed this in. This was weeks ago, and obviously that person's not in the workshop here. And let me get everything back here. Yeah, I always forget. Don't shake things. Everything disappears if you shake a window. And let's see, oh shoot, what was there? Oh yeah, one other little extra piece of information. About that, yeah. I still have the occasional cough that just suddenly hits. So I will try to mute my microphone when it happens. So back to the training workshops here. So every once in a while, I kind of, I get asked like, what's a good way to kind of explain, a trade signal, a set of trading rules or a trading methodology. What's a good way to kind of explain that? And there are some examples here on this list here. Yeah, so if you want an idea, yeah, here we go. So look for this. So like here, I use this same format over and over and over again because I think it's pretty straightforward and easy to comprehend here. So, so look for any kind of question that says a long signal occurs on the following conditions. And I go condition number one. There's condition number one. And then condition number two. And then condition number three. Right? So there are a bunch of questions in there that have that numbering. Yeah, there you go. So you can see a number one, number two, number three again. And so there you go. A reversal long signal is generated when the following conditions happen. Right? So there you go. So that can kind of give you what kind of a template there to follow. If you email a question that has a bunch of system rules there, so like that. All right, yeah. So that was the other thing I just wanted to mention about emailing questions in there. All right, so I think that takes care of Tim's question there. And let's see here. All right, yeah. All right, see what Ricardo has. Oh, thanks, Ricardo. Good. That's exactly what these workshops are for here, is to just help move you guys along a little quicker, than versus just watching a bunch of videos there, and pulling all the pieces together that way. So good. I'm glad this is helping out. So. All right, see what Tony has here. And yep, Tony definitely has a lot of questions that are listed. Yep, are up on our YouTube channel here and listed in there for sure. Yep. Yep. And let's see here. All right, let's see what Paul has. Oh, okay. Yeah. So, all right. Yeah. So Paul's asking about a question that was emailed in last night. Yeah, about identifying some patterns off of a support resistance indicator there. So Paul, I never heard back from David. Oh, there it is. Okay, yeah. So keep in mind, guys, that we use a ticketing system for emails. All right, so we don't just use Microsoft Outlook. That's no way to run a business for support emails. We use a ticketing system, And if you don't know what that is, just look it up. Just look up support ticketing system. And it's basically just a very, very convenient way to list email correspondences. Which is far, far superior than your normal Gmail or Hotmail back and forth. So anyway, so we use a ticketing system, which also tries to filter out spam, right? Obviously, anybody with a support email address gets a boatload of spam, and that's another big benefit of a ticketing system, to try and, automatically get rid of that spam. So anyways, my point is, I emailed David this morning and I didn't hear back from him, but I do see his email now. So apparently, his reply to me was stuck in the ticketing system, which does happen sometimes. All right, so give me a moment here. I'm just reading David's reply. So, okay. So basically Davis is saying the same thing as what Paul is saying. Let's substitute an indicator that actually has readable plots there. So, all right, so that's our next question here. And I think I still have the screenshot. I do. There we go. All right. Yeah, so our next question here is about identifying 3 different kind of bar patterns here. And let's see, we're going to have to maximize this here. All right. 3 different bar patterns against a support resistance indicator here. So just a side note here, that the original indicator was to be this square of 9 indicator here, which actually was created by NinjaTrader. And it's very surprising, but NinjaTrader created this indicator in such a way that you cannot read those support resistance lines. So, it's a bummer when NinjaTrader does that. They make indicators that are not usable, in a systematic format. So, so that was the original problem here with that question, is this is not readable here. So what we're going to do is we're going to substitute the pivot indicator here, which NinjaTrader did make it readable. So, all right, so instead of this line being the square of 9, it's going to be the pivots indicator. All right, and so here are the 3 type of bar patterns here that are being looked for. Right, so one is, if a tail there comes within 1 tick of a line, right? Pretty straightforward. The second bar pattern there is a bar touches, and then basically price kind of bounces off a bit, right? So when we get a second bar that closes above the touching bar, right? So here's the bar that touches. So we need a second bar that breaks above, or simply closes above, right, the bar that touches. And then the third pattern here is, a break of the continuation. All right, so you can see we have a down bar, right? We have a down bar that touches, and then we have the second bar here, which is breaking this continuation bar, all right, down through. All right, so there you go. So we're going to build those 3 bar patterns there. One thing to be mindful of is Bloodhound is not a price pattern indicator. So Bloodhound can do simple things like this, where a pattern involves 2 or maybe 3, maybe even 4 bars, right? So you can do simple bar patterns where the bars are all one after another, right? The bars are all in sequence, right? So you have bar 1, bar 2, bar 3, bar 4, right? So all of these patterns here are bars right next to each other. So that can be done within Bloodhound. But if you're looking for a price pattern where you're trying to compare this bar over here to this bar over here, right, where hopefully you kind of figured out where I'm going, right, like something like a divergence pattern, right, where you're trying to find this high and then you're finding this high and comparing it to the high of indicators, right, because the distance here between these two high points on both price and your indicator changes all the time. So that actually requires custom coding. So those kind of patterns where there's a unknown number of bars between certain points that you're measuring to identify a pattern, that can't be done with Bloodhound. That falls into the realm of a custom coded indicator. So now, so again, getting back to all these patterns here, right? This pattern here, you're looking at this bar and then you're looking at the next bar, right? These two bars are always going to be next to each other. Same here. You look at this bar, right, which is heading down towards the support resistance line, a bar that touches, and then a bar that, bounces away, right? Again, 1, 2, 3. These bar patterns are always going to be right next to each other. And same here, right? These 3 bar patterns, they're all going to be adjacent to each other. So there's no gap, no number of bars that might separate them. They're always next to each other. So those type of bar patterns, I wouldn't call them price patterns. I guess I'd call them bar patterns. Adjacent bar patterns can be identified with Bloodhound, but patterns that have a separation where there's an unknown number of bars in between, those require a custom indicator. So, okay, so there we have it. So let's get into this. All right, so I'm just gonna give me a moment here to get my chart set up. All right. So as mentioned before, to substitute for that square of 9 indicator, which isn't readable, we're going to go with the pivots indicator there. And let's see here. So yeah, so we know the pivots indicator works because it has plots. So plots are definitely readable. So, all right, add that on the chart. And hopefully we have a day that is in line. Actually, let me wrap up the previous question here. All right, so there's our previous question. Let me add a new logic template. There he goes. All right, so this will be for our current question. Okay, so first thing you have to do, right, when you're building something with Bloodhound is you have to find some actual places on the chart where this condition that you're looking for has occurred. There we go. Let's see. Nope. let's see if we have any luck here. Here we go. All right. I believe that looks pretty close to the first pattern there, right? A move up two and then a bounce away. And I guess, you know, that's not perfect, but that almost looks like option two, except for, you know, the second bar actually didn't break above, you know, but the third bar does there. Yeah, you know what? I'll go with that anyways. And I think that's it. Yeah. No. All right, time to get Bloodhound open and let's start working. So, all right, let's see. What is this? This is R1. All right, so one thing to note here is when you're looking for patterns off of a support resistance line, right, you're going to have code for each line that you want to monitor, right? So you're going to have a group of nodes that are looking at, you know, each individual support resistance line there. All right. So, yeah, I'll bring that up again here. So we need, let's see here, a bunch of comparison solvers here. Yeah, and let's see here, and a bar direction. All right. So yeah, so from here, right, so we have up bar, right, so we have some up bars leading to the bar that gets within one tick there. Hopefully that's within one tick. So right, so that's going to be our first thing is this bar direction here, right? So first thing is we need a bar, right, an up bar here, and again, just going off of this, right? So we have an up bar, and then that bar that gets, you know, that where that wick gets within a tick here, and then a down bar, a move away, right? So first step is, let's see, what should I use? Yeah, right. So our right, so we need to identify this this bar here, and of course you can say maybe you want two bars moving towards your support resistance line. So I'm just going to go with one for this, right? So we plug that in, right? And of course, up bars have a long output, down bars have a short. However, right, this pattern is actually a reversal pattern or a bounce pattern off, right? So when the bars are going up, I need a short output when the bars are approaching the support resistance line there. So I am just simply going to reverse or swap the output there, right? So there we go. Now the next thing is I need to take this up bar and move it forward to the next bar, right? So to do that, we have what's called bars ago. So this actually has a mechanism built into the bar direction there. And I can say one bar ago. And so what that does is, right, you can see all of these up bars, right, the short output is shifted forward one. And so this down bar now, right, is generating this long output, right, and that's been shifted forward there. So, and now of course dojis don't have a direction there. So yeah, that actually might be problematic here, right? Because what happens if this bar here is a doji, you know, but the previous bar is an up bar, but that bar is a doji. Yeah, let's take care of that. So yeah, it's a good thing that doji showed up there, right? And so right now with the bar direction, right, that doji doesn't have a direction, and so that's why there's no output on the next bar here. So let's see here. All right, so to handle this doji, I'm gonna need a comparison solver. All right. And let's see here. So we're gonna compare, well, actually, we'll just call this a doji. Yeah. So, and, oh wait, actually, hold on. No. Yeah, so back to this comparison solver here to identify dojis. So both inputs are going to be price data. So let's change both of these to prices. So for input A, I'll just put in the closing price. I'll just leave that at the closing price. Input B, right, this will be the open price of the bar. Right, open price of the bar. And then for the comparison rules, right, we don't want to know if the close is greater than the open. We want to know when the close equals the open, right? That's a doji. So click like that. And there we have it. Look, there you go. All these dojis now have a long and a short output, right? So basically they're non-directional. So if we do have a doji here, you know, it does have a short output for, so remember, the ultimate goal here is to generate a short signal here, right, on this reversal bar away. Okay, so if we do have a doji, at least we have a short output there. Now, what I'm going to do is, and actually, so with this doji, so if this doji is here on this bar, right, remember we need to take the direction from this bar and shift it forward onto the bar, right, that gets within 1 tick. So what I need to do is adjust my look back period to 2 and to 2. And now we can see, right, the dojis, their output's been shifted forward. So this doji's been shifted onto this one, and this doji has been shifted onto this bar, right? So there's our outputs. So there you go. So both the bar direction, let me undo that. There we go. I clicked on the X by accident. So this bar direction, right, again, everything's been shifted forward 1 bar. So now for the logic, right, either one of these bars here, either a doji bar or the bar direction is what we're looking for. So yeah, there we go. All right, and so now let's see, actually there we go. So this is telling us, you know, making sure that the prior bar is in the correct direction. Let's see here. not S1, R1. There, R1. All right, so now we're going to identify this bar here that's within 1 tick, right? Let's see here. Let's connect that in. All right. Now, again, this is a short reversal signal here. So if it was a long, we'd be looking at the low wick to see if that low wick came down within 1 tick, right? And then reverse off. So, but this time we're looking at the high price of the bar, seeing if that comes within 1 tick. There we go. Of the pivot. There you go. Fat finger typing. All right. So input A is going to be right the low and high prices. Input B will be the pivot indicator. So let's set input A to price. And again, if price is coming down, right, and then bouncing off, right, it's the low price coming down, and so we're looking at the low price for a long bounce off. So for a long, right, use the low price. And for what we're working with, right, we're looking at the high price for a short signal. So this will be the high price. There we go. Input B, pivot indicator. All right, there's our pivots. Little side note here. When you're working with intraday data, intraday charts, NinjaTrader recommends using calculate from intraday data. All right, so don't use the daily bars. So this indicator has problems using daily bars on intraday data. So make sure that this is set to calculate on intraday data there. And all right, so now we need to pick our plot here. What are we monitoring? R1, right? And, yeah. All right, select R1. And yep, R1. All right, now the comparison rules here. This is where we set up that the high and the low need to be within 1 tick. Let's see here. So we're actually going to use the equal here. Yeah. And let's put in within 1 and not points, but ticks. Let's change this to ticks. There. And there we have it. We actually have, look at that, 3 bars here that are within 1 tick. Now, there we go. So what's going to happen here is if we look at the rules window, right, the equal says within 1 tick. So we can see here, right, that it's actually 1 tick below. And we have a long output. Right, so we need to eliminate if the tick penetrates through there. All right, so we have to set a limitation for this within condition here. All right, so what we'll do is we'll take this and copy it, and we'll paste it. Right, that way right? That way we have all the prices and the indicator all set up and everything. But this time, in the comparison rules here, and let's connect that in. And actually, I want to go back here. Yeah, let's take a look at these bars here. So this time we're going to go back to, let's see, what do we need? So for a short, it needs to be less than or equal to, right, the pivot indicator minus 1 tick. And so this will be the opposite. So for a long, the low price needs to be greater than or equal to the pivot, right, the pivot R1 line plus 1 tick. Right. And let's see, we don't have an output there. Okay. And oh, I wonder if that maybe that is 2 ticks away. Okay, well, sorry. All right, so I had to reverse that pattern there. No. All right, let's try this. All right, I'm going to strip out the equal condition, and let's just put this to 0 ticks. And there we go. Okay, okay. Yeah, I wonder if, yeah, it could be the pivot indicator is slightly, more than a tick away. It might be a tick and a half away. All right, so that's a problem, right? When you're working with the indicators, sometimes indicators rarely land on the exact tick price. So that's probably what we're dealing with there. So actually, let me go back to this. And how about if I say half a tick? Even half a tick doesn't work. Okay, a quarter of a tick. There we go. All right, so I'll just put in a quarter of a tick there. That way I can go back to what I originally wanted to use there. All right. So there. So now with both of these conditions, right? This one's saying, I guess I should put this in, right? Within 1 tick, right? And this one, right? So again, this solver here, the comparison rule, all right, we're using the equal, but the equals is, creates a range. So we actually have a 1 tick range above and below, right, the pivot plot here, right? So this pivot line, we have a range of 1 tick above and below. So this other solver, so for this specific situation here, right, for this short bounce, right, this solver here, using the less than or equal to, is stripping away the 1 tick above range, right? So that's how we make sure that we don't get a short if that wick punches through by 1 tick, right? So this strips away half of that that one tick range that the other one creates. All right, so let's connect those in, and there we have it. All right, so looking at this, right, this has a short output whenever the high is just simply below R1, and then if the low is above, right, we have this long output here. But when we combine it with this range condition here, this within one tick range condition, then we get exactly what we want. So there you go, boom, boom, right, that one, there you go, low, low, so on and so forth. And there you go. So remember this guy here, right, that low wick was inside that one tick range there, and so now that's been stripped out, right? So these, the low price is above R1, and that gives us a signal, but when it punches through, it's stripped out. And again, we can look at this over here, right? There you go. It had a long output, even though it crossed, yeah, right? It crossed there. So, okay. So we have that. And so now we can connect this in here. Right, so here we go. So we have an up bar, and then we get the bar, right, that actually, right, the bar that actually gets within. Same thing over here, gets within. So now, right, so where we're at, right, with all this is we're actually at this bar right now. So now we need to go to the next bar and identify the bar that's bouncing away. All right, and so we need to take this and we're going to use a function node. So we're going to use this look back node, and we're going to use the displacement so that we're taking, right, the output from this bar and shifting it forward onto the next bar, right? Because it's the next bar that is doing the bouncing away or the reversing, right? So, you know, and it just so happens here we actually have two wicks, right, that are within that one tick range there. So that's why we have a double short output here, right? But, you know, what happens if this wick was one tick shorter, right? We wouldn't have this output here. So what we're doing is, right, is we're taking this and shifting it onto the next bar, and then we check, well, does this next bar move away, right? Is this a down bar? Is this next bar a down bar here? So, and so the displacement, or I'm sorry, the look back here with a displacement set to 1 is how we can shift signals forward. So actually, yeah, look at this, right? This doji bar and this short, right, there. So if I connect that in, there you go, right? The outputs were just shifted forward onto the next bar. And so I like to name this here. I like to name my look back to tell me what it's doing. So this look back, I'm not using the look back period, right? It's set to 1. A period of 1 does nothing, right? But we are using this one displacement there. So, all right, now another AND node, like so. And let's see here. So this bar direction, right, we can see the little icon in there. That's because the swapped button is hit here. So I should name this, right? This is actually giving us a reversed output here, like so. So what I need is another bar direction. Connect that in. Connect that in. Let's shift this over there, right? So, you know, like right here, right? Here's our bar that's within 1 tick, but this is an up bar. So how do we strip away that short signal and only keep it when we get this down bar here? That's with the bar direction. And there we have it. So, and let's see. So, so we actually have a long bounce here. Let's find out why do we have, sorry, a long signal there. And I think it has to do with these guys. Yeah, okay. All right. Yeah, so technically we have a down bar and then we have a bar that is right where the wick is within 1 tick, and then we have a bar that bounces away. So we kind of discovered we need another filtering mechanism here. So we need to make sure that, right, this first bar here, has a certain distance away from our support resistance line. Right, so we can see here, right, this down bar is basically 1 tick away. Right, so how do we get rid of that? Well, we make sure that there's a gap between the low of that bar to R1. All right, so let's add in this gap here. And let's see. All right, I think we already have something close here made. Actually, you know what? I'm just gonna start from scratch. And also, I'm just kind of wondering myself if I want to redesign this logic here, because right now this AND node is actually monitoring 2 bars at the same time, right? So the first 2 bars are actually all are being identified with this first AND node, right? And the second AND node actually is the bar that reverses away, right? Bounces away here. So, right. So let's name this here. So, right. So this AND node is the first and the second bar. Right. Let's see here. So, all right, I'm going to move this down here. Actually, yeah, I'll rename this here. So this is actually the first bar direction of the pattern. And yeah, let me copy this. I'm gonna move it up here just to help kind of denote here that, yeah, this will be let's see here. There. All right. So this comparison solver, it's gonna be looking at the first bar, and I'll make sure that it's at least 3 ticks away from R1, right? So again, remember where the circle is, where the dot is, right? That's our first bar, second bar, third bar in the pattern there. So, and remember this doji, right? Remember this is a comparison solver, and we're using a look back period of 2, right? So that's basically taking this, it's looking at this bar to see if it's a doji or not, and then shifting it forward 1 bar. So that's basically what the look back period does in this, with this mode, right? So with this processing of single value, effectively all it's doing is when you're on this bar, okay, we're looking back 1 bar, right? We're looking back 1 bar and comparing the open to the close, right? But it's being done on this bar here. So when this bar prints, it's actually looking back to this bar and seeing if this bar is a doji, but then the output is on this bar. Okay, so we're going to do the same thing here with this guy, is set our look back period to 2, but also for input B, we also need to set the displacement to 1 as well. So we need to look back 1 bar on the indicator and look back 1 bar on the prices there. All right. And so now let's make sure that they're at least 3 ticks away. So let's put in 3, 3, hit apply. Oh, let's connect this in. There we go. And yeah, there we have it. Right. So, right, this bar here is clearly has a 3 tick separation, but the output is shifted forward onto the second bar. Right. And let's see, this bar here doesn't actually have, so this bar and this bar has that 3 tick separation, but they're shifted forward onto the next 2 bars. Yeah. So anyways, right. So obviously when you're doing patterns, you're going to have to figure out, how many, ticks of separation, all these distances here. You'll have to figure that out here. So I'm just going to say, call it 3 ticks good enough. So, and then connect that into the end node. There we go. So now let's go back and look at our output, right? So remember what we were working on is we were getting rid of this, let me grab it again. Yeah, remember we had this kind of erroneous long signal over here, right? Because this bar, right, we weren't checking the distance away, but also, maybe you might want to require multiple up bars moving towards your support resistance, right? And so that's just a matter of adjusting this for adding multiple bars here, right? So for example, I could take this bar direction and I could say, all right, you know what? I need at least 2 bars, right? 2 bars there. So and then the doji, yeah, the doji is a little more complicated. Yeah, actually, for the doji, if we, because maybe your doji's this, excuse me. There, that's better. So maybe this doji, you know, is like the first bar, right? And then the second bar there, well, yeah, this gets a little more complicated. Yeah, if I'm using a bar direction, setting it to number of bars 2 actually means we have to have 2 up bars. So let's see, so I need to actually knock that down to 1. I'll keep this like it is. And yeah, here we go. So what, yeah, so if we want to, again, what I'm doing here is, so here's the bar that here's the bar that touches. And so let's say we want to make sure that there's at least 2 bars, right, moving up and approaching our support resistance line before the bar that touches, right? So like over here, we only have 1 down bar, right? So if you want 2, we could take this and use a look back node or function node, connect that in, and this time, let's see, we're going to displace, no, we're going to turn the displacement off. We're turning this displacement off because remember, these guys are already using essentially a displacement, right? Start bar as a go shifts everything forward. Our doji, right, we're looking back 2, so that shifts everything forward. So actually, you know what? Let's do this here. Yeah, I was kind of wondering if I was going to use a look back or not here. So I'm actually going to make this more modular. Excuse me again. To make this more adjustable here, so we can adjust for the number of bars back, what I'm going to do is for these solvers here, I'm going to remove the look back here. So I'm going to remove the part that's taking that bar direction and shifting it forward, right, onto the next bar. So our bar direction here, I'm going to get rid of the start bar as a go. Set that to 0 there. All right. And so if we look at this, right, there's no output shifting. So up bar, up bar, up bar, up bar, right? Every up bar has a short output, right? And all the dojis there, all the dojis have a long and a short together, right? And then the down bar is like so. So instead, I can just use this look back here. And now I can say, all right, if you want 2 bars, let's look back 2 bars. And so we need a minimum of 2 bars looking back here. So now if I look at this, there, let's see here. Yeah, so our first doji, it doesn't have a short output. When we get to our second doji, we get a short output, right? So on and so on and so forth. And then here's our first down bar, right? No output. But when we get to the doji, now we get a long output from this down bar. So yes, remember this was all reversed, right? Because this is for the price pattern that's approaching, right? And the ultimate goal is to get a reversal signal here, right? This short signal, because it's bouncing away, right? So that's why that's why these are all giving us short outputs when the bars are going up, because the signal we want is a short in this pattern here, right? And so then vice versa, imagine, right, if we had a support resistance line here, right, there we go, we got bars going down, And so we're getting a long output for this bounce here. So, okay. So back to this look back node, right? So now we can just simply adjust this number here and determine, right, how many, and actually, I'm sorry, we do need that displacement in there. Yeah. So remember, I effectively took the displacement out of these two solvers here. Remember, these solvers were using the look back to shift things forward. So now this look back actually has to have a displacement in it. So that way it takes these bars and shifts it forward onto the bar that's almost touching there. All right. So there. So I'm going to knock this down to 1. So we're only requiring, one bar, prior to the bar that's nearly touching there. And then the displacement there. So let's name this. There. All right. So if you do want 2 bars here, then all you have to do is adjust your look back to 2, and there we go. And I'll also remember to update this so that you know that, okay, we're taking 2 bars, right? All right, just shorten that up. All right, so these are now the approaching bars. Yeah, so these are the approaching bars here. And let's disconnect that. So now I can connect this look back in. There we go. All right. So with, a little bit of adjustments, we now kind of made this a little more universal there. And you can determine how many approaching bars you need to require in this pattern here. And again, I'm just going to keep it simple. I'm knock that down to 1 there. And so, all right, let's see where we're at. There. Actually, I'm just going to take a quick scan through the chart and see if we get any more signals. Oh, there was one. Yeah, there we go. Look at that. All right. Bars approaching, and then we have a bar that bounces away. Great. And actually, let's see if we have some other patterns here. Yeah, you know what? Here's option 3. Good. I'm glad I found this. Yeah, so we have some bars moving down, and actually, yeah, maybe that's an option 3 as well. So, okay. Let's see. All right, let me go back to where we're working, back to pattern number 2. There we go. Oh, wait, no. Oh, look, there's another number 1. There we go. All right, so this is pattern number 2. Yeah. Again, let's pull this up here. Yeah, so we have price. We have a bar coming down, a bar that this time touches, and then bounces away here. So, yeah. So this pattern here, right? Clearly it's the same as right, pattern number 1. The only difference is, where's the wick? Does the wick not get through, or does the wick actually touch? All right, touch our support resistance line there. So, let's see here. Let's see. There. All right. So, yeah. So the only real difference is we just monitor. Does the wick actually, or does the bar actually touch? Right. So do we actually have a wick that touches there, or not? So I'm going to take this and yeah, I was going to copy and paste it, but I don't want to duplicate all these extra solvers. I guess in the bigger scheme of things, this is very simple to calculate. But my policy is always keep your system as streamlined as possible. In other words, use as many nodes, use as a minimal number of nodes as possible, right? That way you're reducing the calculation load on your CPU there. So that's kind of what I like to do. So let's see. All right. Yeah, I'm just going to rebuild this manually here. Yeah, so I'm just using this as my template, and I'm just quickly rebuilding it here. All right, yeah, so that's as far as we can go. Right, now the difference here, right, the difference between a wick getting close versus a wick actually touching is these solvers in the previous one, right? So remember this guy, this solver here, we were looking for that 1 tick, within 1 tick. And then this solver here makes sure that the wick doesn't actually touch or go through, right, the support resistance line here. So this is where the logic changes here between a wick that touches and a wick that doesn't. All right, so from that standpoint, now I can go down here and start building some other solvers here. So I need another comparison, right? So to identify, let me put a little dot here, right? So we want to know when a bar touches, right? Something like that. So, yeah. Okay, so this comparison solver here, right? So if a bar, right, touches some indicator or a moving average, you know, what happens, or, you know, the two conditions that are always true is your low price is below, right, the line, and your high price is always above it, right? So any bar that, like this doji here, let me, there we go, that doji, right, is touching this moving average, and the low price is below, the high price is above. So that's what we'll do. We'll input A, set that to price, and so we want to make sure the high price is above, and we're going to make sure that the low price is below, and plug in our indicator. All right, let's put in that pivot, and we're working with the R1 there. There we go. So this is a bar that touches pivot R1. And so for the, we don't actually have to change the comparison rules here, right? So we have a high above. Actually, sorry, we should include the equals, because maybe if the high or the low equals the line, you know, I think most people would consider that a touch. So let's include the equal symbol in our conditions here. Right, so there we go. So we just included the equals there. Right, and what happens is, right, obviously if the bar is above, then you get a long output, but here we can see the bar is touching R1, and we get a long and a short, right? These four bars are touching, and we're getting, right, a long and a short on all those bars that touch. So the next thing we need to do is filter out the bars that have a long and a short together. So we want to strip out or remove the long only and remove the short only bars. So to do that, we can use a function node, the long short modifier there, and we're going to set the mode to minimum. Right, so basically what the long short modifier outputs is whatever the minimum value is. So if there's a long only, well, the shorts equals 0. So that means the longs equals 0, because we're outputting the minimum value. And there we go. So there's the bars that are touching. And there, put the mode in there. There we go. So next, connect that in. Call it good. And let's see. Okay, here's the problem. So these two bars are within 3 ticks of R1. So remember, we had this little filter here to make sure the bars weren't resting right on top of that. So, you know what, just for the sake of making this work, I'm just going to knock it down to 2 ticks. And let's put in 2 ticks, 2 ticks, And really, oh, there we go. Okay, yeah, R1 is 0.33. So it's just above the tick value. Yeah, it's 47.33 instead of 47.25. So yeah, there's our problem. Yeah, it's just shy of 2 ticks. Yeah. All right, so let's go in and adjust this again. Let's see here. Oh, wait, which one? There we go. Sorry. This solver here. And let's go to the comparison rules. Yeah, so. All right, we'll have to knock it down to 1.5 ticks just to make it work there. There we go. There. And so now, let's see here. I think I need a reload here. Yeah, I'm not getting the output here I'm expecting, right? Because we got down bar, doji, down bar, down bar. So let's do a little reload here. And no, okay. Oh, here's the problem. All right, so remember I just kind of rebuilt all this from scratch. And so when I pulled these solvers right off of the solver panel here, this bar, right, I labeled it reversal bar direction, but the swap mode is not enabled. There's my problem. Okay. Yeah, so remember the one up above here, right, that swap mode is turned on. Yeah, so a little side note, these modifiers don't actually modify the main node, the main solver in the list of solvers here. These modifiers, these modifier buttons only modify the individual node themselves. All right, so that's why this node didn't have the swap enabled, right? Because they're each, even though these are the same node, right? Both of these nodes are this guy right here, this node. But if I drag a new one on here, right, it's not swapped, right? It's not, yeah, it's not swapped. So yeah, these buttons are all on an individual node by node basis, right? That way things are a lot more modular. So yeah, so something that's easy to kind of overlook. So all right, there we go. So yeah, as I said, there was a problem with this group of nodes here, and it's all because of that one guy. That bar direction wasn't reversed or swapped. And there we go. So there's our bar touching. All right. And next we need a reversal bar. And actually, I guess technically, you know, if we look at this, we actually don't immediately get a breakaway bar. So I guess, you know, ultimately this kind of fails here. But the next part here is we need to make this, yeah. All right. So this is the third bar, right? The bar that actually does the reversing away or the bounce away. So let me copy that and I'll paste it here. And then this bar direction, there we go, it's this guy here. Drag it over and then add a AND node. Connect it in. There we go. There. Now, right now, this part, this component here, right? We can see, right? It says bar touch, right? Because it's not filtering out for wicks. This is literally a bar. Any part of the bar can touch, including the wicks. So it doesn't say body touch, doesn't say wick, it says bar touch. So if you want to get really technical, like here where only the wick is allowed to touch, then we need another filter here to say, all right, you know what, the body, the low price of that body needs to be above the line. So if the low price of that body is above the line, then we know that the wick is touching, right, and not the body. So let's add another filter here. And let's see here. I'll just build it from scratch. All right. All right, let's connect that in. And all right, so yeah, so essentially this is filtering out for wicks there, right? So input A will be price, right? So let's see here again. Yeah, so for a long, let's see, the low, right? We're looking at the, sorry, actually, hold on a moment here. Oh, okay. So if we're in a long pattern, we're looking at the body low, here. So I'm going to scroll all the way down the bottom and use the body bottom price, right? So that's going to be the bottom of the body, and for a short, it'll be the opposite, the body top, all right? Yeah, I don't have something. Yeah, let me just make something up here, right? So let's say we had a line, right? So this bar here, right, the body top would be below the line. And so here the body top is above that line, right? So if the body top is below it, right, that would be a potential short bounce. Right, so for the short signals, right, I'm looking at the top of the body. And if it's a long bounce, then I'm looking at the bottom of the body. All right, so now input B, that is our pivot indicator. Once again. And R1, like so. Oh, and let's see. Oh, yeah, that's all we need. Right, so as long as the bottom of the body is above, right, we're getting a long output here. And if the top of the body is below, we're getting a short. So now, when I'm just gonna throw this in temporarily here. So now when we combine these together, we can take a look, right? There we go. So here's the bar where only the wick touches, right? The body is touching, but there's no signal, right? The wick is touching, there's a signal. Yeah, we don't have anything over there for shorts. Yeah, that's it. There, yeah. Right. So let's connect that in. And yeah, connect that in and there. Right. Like so. So if it doesn't have to be only the wick, then all you gotta do is disconnect this, right? Just remove this wick filter mechanism. But if you only want the wick, then yeah, you just connect that in like so. All right. So we should name this here, right? So this is a wick touch, right? Like so. Here. All right, so that, let me scan through the chart here and see if we actually have any signals. Oh yeah, there we go. Boom, price moved up, our wick touched, and then there's the bar that moves away. There's our down bar away. So, oh, and actually, hold on, one more requirement here. Pull this up. Yeah, so we have one more requirement here, which is the bar, right? The bouncing bar, or the bar that the bar that moves away needs to close above the bar that touches. So okay, yeah. All right, so let's add that in. Yeah, so this signal will go away because, yeah, this bar here did not close past the bar that's touching. So we're actually going to strip that signal out. And, yeah, so instead of just the bar direction, yeah, you know what? Yeah, the bar direction is not doing anything there. Yeah, we have a more strict requirement here, so we're going to need another comparison solver. All right, so this time, let's see, both input A and input B are, are going to be price. Right, and so what are we doing here? Let's pull this up. Right, so this is a long signal example, right? So the close has to be higher than the previous bar's high, right? And then vice versa. The close would have to be lower than the previous bar's low. Yeah, so if this bar touched, this close has to be lower than the previous bar's low, right? Close, previous than the higher than the previous bar's high, close, previous lower than the previous bar's low. All right. So for this comparison solver, input A is the close. Okay. And I'm going to use kind of a programming notation here. All right, so the close here and the 1 is referring to our look back periods, right? So that's the current bar close. And then we're comparing it to the high or low of 1 bar back. Let's see here. So for a long, we're comparing to the high price. For a short bounce, we're comparing to the low price. And then the look back needs to be set to 2. So as we kind of look through all this, right? This close is higher than the previous high. This close actually equals the high, so nothing. This close is prior to the high. This close is prior to the high, right? This close is lower than the previous low, right? Same here. This close is lower than the previous low, right? There we have it. And every once in a while, if we get an engulfing bar, wow, I'm not seeing any engulfing bars. Oh, actually, nope, sorry. That's right. No, this won't tell you engulfing bars. Never mind. I was going a little too far. There it is. All right, there's where we're working. So there we have it. We managed to strip out that signal since the down bar did not close past, past the bar that touches. So, all right, let's see here. Let's, let's see. All right, yeah, that'll do it. Oh, so let me actually see if I can find some valid signals here. Oh, look at this. All right. Yeah, so remember this part. We actually have 2 patterns here. Let's see. All right, so, oh, there's our problem. So, this, excuse me again. This doji is, within a few ticks here of R1, right? So that's why that signal didn't occur there. Right, so details. So if, right, remember this solver here is making sure that our first bar is at least 2 ticks away. And right? This first bar is clearly not 2 ticks away. So if I remove this from the system, there we go. All right, down bar, doji, a bar wick touches, and then this bar closes away. All right. So, okay. So again, it all, a lot of these filters here, have to be determined exactly what you want there. Oh, and let's see what else. Okay, yeah, remember that. So this look back here, remember it's only requiring 1 bar. So this doji here is considered a down bar. So, right. So if we wanted 2 bars, we could increase the look back to 2. And again, this has a down bar, it has a doji. So this still qualifies, right, for bars approaching before the touch bar. So, yeah. All right, let me just put that back. And wrong way. There we go. Okay. Let's see. And what do we have here? Oh, yeah. So you know what? Look at that. We have a down bar that touches, but both bars touch. So you know what? Maybe we do need to keep this in here, and instead of it being 1 tick, maybe half a tick away. So we can go in here into the comparison rules, right? Yeah, so obviously as soon as I connected that in, that stripped out this bar here that touched there. But also let's just go in here and remove the 1, just put it half, like so. There we go. All right, so that kind of cleaned up this where this down bar is touching there. Right. I guess, yeah. As far as this, something else that would have filtered this out is, going back to this look back node, right? If we required more than just 1 bar, if we put this on 2 bars, then, yeah, right, we had an up bar and then a down bar instead of 2 down bars. So that would have filtered that out as well. So, all right, let's move on to the third pattern here. Right, so we get a bunch of down bars and then a bar that just punches right through. And let's take a look at the screenshot again here. Right, a break of a continuation candle here. Yeah, so we have at least 1 bar, all right, moving down, and then we have a break here, and then we have a third bar that closes, well, actually no, just a continuation. Sorry, yeah, so it's not breaking the bar that touches, it's just a continuation. So we just need down bar, down bar, down bar, and there's our signal for a short, right? Or, shoot, almost, I know, I guess if we had an up bar, up bar, up bar, if this third one was an up bar, then yeah, this would have been a long. So, all right, so that's our last pattern there. And that one should be really, really simple here. So let's build kind of like our first bar again here. And let me name this. There. Okay. All right. So before I move on to pattern number 3 here, let me go get some more water, guys. I'm I'm all out of water, so I'm gonna go to the break room there and fill up my cup with water. So, and I'll be right back. So if you guys need to warm up your cup of coffee or go get your cup of coffee, I'll be back here in just a minute. All right. All right, gentlemen, I'm back. So, continuing on here with with option number 3 or pattern number 3 here, this kind of continuing breakthrough. So, all right. So first thing, I'm gonna build this same logic again here, which is pretty universal across all 3 patterns there, right? This approaching bar, making sure that there's bars approaching the line. So let's see, zoom in here. So I need this reversal bar. Here we go. And this time I'll remember to swap it. And then we need the doji. All right. And then let me copy that OR node, paste it. Yeah, so when I copied and pasted it, it kept the name as well. So that saved me a split second. And then, I should have copied the look back node too. So just a little lesson here. Since both of these nodes are needed, I can select both of them, right? Copy both of them, and then paste both of them. There we go. All right, so there's our, approaching bar direction. And then next, we need a bar that touches. So that is this logic here, all right? So this next pattern is very close to what we just built here, all right? So I'm gonna actually, I need all of this, and actually, oops, let me undo that, there we go. So I need, there we go. I need these 2 comparison solvers, this long short modifier, and this AND node. So I'm going to copy all 4. Let's copy that, and click off. There you go, click off. Now I can move this guy back. But also I should probably separate this down here a little bit more. Yeah, there we go. Okay, next, let me paste those nodes. There we go. Move them in, connect that in. And let's see here. Well, Oh, yeah. Oh, actually, yeah, we should get a signal there. And oh, shoot. You know what? Yeah, because I copied and pasted these comparison solvers. It actually made a copy. So sorry. Let me back up here. I'm gonna undo. Here. All right. So I'm actually just gonna drag. Yeah, just drag from the solver panel here. There. All right, I am going to copy this long short modifier. Yeah. So remember, this is the bar touch identifier here. All right. And so when you're identifying if a bar touches, you do need that long short modifier there, right? And you're going to get that long and short output as mentioned before. So there we go. So here, so let me, just reduce that to that. And then here is pattern 3. There we go. Why won't this move? Come on, Ninja. There we go. There. All right. So again, I'm essentially kind of rebuilding this logic here because, again, option 3, we need a bar that touches. So now let's add in the AND node. Connect that and that and that. And let's see. Oh. Okay. Yep. So option 3 is different than the first two. Yeah, so remember, pattern 1 is basically a bounce off. Pattern 2 is a bounce off. But pattern 3 is a continuation through, right? So remember this approaching bar, if we look at the output here, so look, these down bars are producing a long output, but this is a continuation. So this time, right, this reverse bar, actually I don't want a reverse bar, I just want a normal bar direction. There. All right, there we go. So down bar, right? We have a short output here. Let's stretch this out, right? Short output, down bar, down bar, down bar, down bar, down bar. There. So, yeah. Okay. So now let's look at this. All right. The first bar here is within half a tick. All right, let's disconnect that. There we go. So here's the bar that touches. So down bar, and but yeah, this half a tick away, violates it. So all right, I'm gonna adjust this one again just to force it to work. Let's just say make sure it's at least 1/10 of a tick away. Man. All right. Even that didn't work, really. Oh, yeah. And again, this solver is set up for a bounce. So it's actually set up for this bar to be above, but for a long signal here. Yeah, so this is all set up wrong. Okay, so actually, I will need to make a copy of this. Yeah, so let's grab this. Or maybe, actually, no, you know what? Yeah, I was just going to say, okay, you know what, I could just reverse it. Yeah, so I could take this and I could just swap it. There you go. And it works if I just swapped it. Right, if I turn off the swap, there you go. Right, the signal's gone. Turn the swap on and it reverses. But I don't know. Yeah. Sometimes, you know, remembering to have to swap stuff is, you know, can get you in hot water, right? Easy to forget. So I think the better thing to do is we'll just take this, copy it, and actually make a new solver here. We'll make a new solver. So we'll paste in the copy. There we go. So this time, all right, so for a short, so remember, let's put an arrow here, right? So ultimately we're looking for a short signal right there. So this time we want the low price above, but we want a short output on this first bar. So we're using the low price for now a short signal. So I need to reverse these here. All right, so for a long, it's going to be the high. So for a short signal, it's going to be the low. All right, and then I need to go into the rules window here and make sure this is all correct. All right, so for a short, the low is actually above R1. So the low, yeah, it's not less than, it's actually greater than, it's above. So I need to reverse these conditions. And oh yeah, that's right. So yeah, we have a look back of 2. So we're looking at, yeah, so this bar here, right, is above, so it produced a short on the next bar over, and this bar produced a signal on the bar that touches. Yeah, because remember our look back period and our displacement. So this is shifting things. This is looking at the first bar and then shifting things forward onto the bar that touches. Yeah. All right. So anyways, there we go. So there's the bar that touches. Great. And so next here, I can copy these 2 nodes. And paste them there. And the last thing I need is another bar direction, right? So our third bar here is a bar direction. So boom, put that in there. Actually, yeah, because look, yeah, look at this. So yeah, so this doji actually counted even though it's on the wrong side. So anyways, let's put that in there, excuse me. And actually, yeah, so let's just make sure, just in case, let's make sure that the closing price of this third bar is on the correct side of our support resistance line here. So let's see here. Yeah, all right. I was seeing if there was a comparison solver that I could copy, but no, I don't see one. So, all right. All right, so we're just comparing the closing price to the pivot R1. All right, so input A is going to be the closing price. Price. There we go. The closing price is already the default. So now input B needs to be the pivot R1 plot. All right, there's our pivots. Select R1. And there we have it. So as long as the close is below R1, right, we get a short. And as soon as that close is above, we get a long. So there is kind of like our final filter here, just to make sure that something like this wacky doji doesn't generate a false positive signal there, right? Because technically, right, we have up bar, this bar touches, right, and then a doji. So I guess what we could also do is make sure that the bar that touches also closes, so it's not just a wick touch, but the bar actually closes on the correct side. So we could do that. Let's see here. Yeah, so I can take the same node, right? Both of these nodes are the same, but this time connected over here. There. Yeah, so let's look at this AND node here. If I disconnect this node here, right? Look, so we have an up bar and then the bar that touches, right? Although the close isn't on top of R1, right? So the way that we can filter out these wicks touching is, right, with the same node. So we're using the same node twice, right? Comparing the closing price to the pivot R1, but we're connecting it back to this AND node. Because remember, this AND node is the, it's the first two bars, right? It's the first bar and the bar that touches. So, and yeah, here, let's copy. I'll copy the names here to these AND nodes. All right, so it's always a good idea to kind of put in, to name your AND nodes, so that you know where is this AND node within the pattern, right? Right. So as you can kind of gather from this simple idea, each AND node is basically stepping through each bar. So one AND node represents the first two bars, and the last AND node represents the third bar. Okay, there we go. Connect that in. There we're good. So next. There. Oh, here we go. We actually had a long right there. Let's see. Yeah, up bar, up bar, up bar. There we go. And with this one, it's not just the wick touching, but the body is touching. Yeah. All right. Well, I'm gonna wrap this up here and call it a day. So my throat is kind of needs a break. So the final thing to note here. So let's say if there's a couple of things here. So let's say you wanted to identify all three patterns. Well, that's just a matter of an OR node, right? So we can take all of these patterns, combine them into an OR node, and then we can see all three different patterns and signals, right? And there we go. Look at that. Okay, we got a lot more on here than I kind of expected. Let's take a look. So, yeah, there we go. Let's see here. Let me just actually double check here. Let's see. All right, yeah. So pattern number 1 here doesn't have a requirement for this down bar to close below. All right, the almost touching bar there. Yeah, I guess that would be kind of a difficult. That would probably almost never happen. Rarely. So there we go. Right. So first bar, second bar that approaches, and then third bar bounces away. Right. Here's pattern 3, and here's pattern 2. Wow, look at that. All right, all three patterns in this one spot here. And then let's see what else we got. Okay, yeah, pattern 3, and what is this? Pattern 1. Yeah, there's pattern 1 right there. So great. Let's see. Yeah, this wasn't quite pattern 3 because of that doji there. So, yeah, a little sloppy. Obviously with something like this, a lot of variations there. So just kind of like how with all of these, right, we used an OR node. So that way we could look at the bar direction, but also if there was a doji, right? So we can include a doji, right? So let's see. Yeah, this is actually definitely a different pattern here. So you got a bar, 2 bars touching before the continuation. So that would need a pretty good modification of this, actually, or maybe just remove that. Yeah, I mean that's not perfect. Well, that's subjective, obviously, subjective. But if I took away this requirement here, remember this requirement here says, actually, remember we named it here. So the first bar has to be basically not touching R1, right? So, yeah. And yeah, so basically we have 2 bars touching, so yeah, a little different there. So, all right. Anyways, so that really wasn't a point I was trying to make here. So the last point to make is these systems were only built, and I said this at the very beginning of this question or topic here, that this is only built for R1. So if you want to apply this to all the other support resistance lines, then you just have to rebuild all this for every support resistance line that's out there, right? So yeah, each line needs its own set of logic. Just like if you were going to write a custom indicator, right, you'd have to have code that's looking at each line separately. So, so lastly, let's just say, let's call this here. actually, probably should incorporate it into the AND node. There, I'll just put an R1 in there. There. Colon. There we go. There. So when you're rebuilding all of this for the other pivot lines, right, you can just rebuild them, and the only time you need to make a new solver is, again, all the solvers that have pivot R1. So this will take a new solver, and instead of looking at R1, now you'll look at whatever, the PP line, right? Same one here, right? This is looking at R1, so you'll need a new a copy of this, a new solver of this. Same here, this one mentions pivot R1. So you'd want to probably like copy and paste this if you want to build this logic for the pivot PP line, right? And then you can just rename the node, but more importantly, go into the pivot indicator and then change them from the R1 over to the PP line, right? So all these nodes that are labeled, R1, you need copies of those. All the other nodes here, like the bar direction, you don't need, you don't need 12 bar directions. You only need one, and you can just use it over and over and over again. And that saves CPU calculation times, right? So the only nodes that need to be duplicated in here are the ones that specifically reference the pivot R1 when you're wanting to reference the PP line or S1 and so on and so forth, right? Yeah. So again, a doji is a doji, so you don't need multiple copies of the doji in your list here. All right. Just this one doji, like what we're doing there, right? So here and here, right? These are all the same nodes. Well, actually not, that's right. This one actually has a bar direction, but this reversal bar direction is the same as this one, right? So it's this one right here. This one is being used twice for these two logics here. But again, right, so it's all these comparison solvers here that are referencing the pivot R1. Those you'll have to make copies of and then switch them over to the pivot S1 and the PP line, so on and so forth. So you can imagine that when you're all done, you're going to have this guy copied multiple times for each of those pivot lines that you want to compare price against, right? So, yeah. So you'll have, by the end, you'll have, a long, a long vertical, grouping of all those systems together there. Yeah. All right. Yeah. And then finally, you would just connect all the AND nodes into one OR node at the very end, and then you would see all those patterns up against all of the different pivot lines. So, all right. Yeah, that was the final note there. So, yeah. And let me take a look at the Q&A window and just make sure, see if there's anything else, last minute things I can answer. Let's see here. All right, yeah, so Paul and David got their question answered. Yeah. And let's see here what Paul's got. Yeah, all right. Yeah, sounds good, Paul. So, yeah, I mean, I could kind of tell that, by looking at this screenshot here, that not every variation that the market can throw at you, has been considered here. So yeah, so if you have follow-ups on this, no problem. Just send them in, and I love the screenshot. Screenshots help a lot. So that way I can, see exactly what's going on here. Yep. So if you got some follow-ups, no problem. I'll take care of that. Actually, oops, let me leave that on there. So, yeah. All right. So with that, gentlemen, my voice is done for the day. Yeah. So I'm going to call it quits here. And so just remember, tomorrow is the Blackbird workshop. So if I don't see you tomorrow, then I'll see you next time. And remember, you can always email your questions into support for these workshops. So if you can't make it, just email your question in and I'll still get it answered there. All right, just put in the subject line of your email, just put in workshop question there for me. So yeah, helps me out a lot. All right, gentlemen, with that, have a good rest of your day and I'll see you next time. Okay, bye-bye.